Welcome to the debate. We are diving into what is maybe the most high-stakes career question of the late 2020s. The viability of becoming a successful software engineer without, the four-year college degree. We all know there's massive financial potential, but the current tech hiring market is fiercely volatile.
It really is.
So the core tension is simple. Does the astonishing potential reward of the self-taught path, zero educational debt, entry-level salaries well over six figures, does that outweigh the significant documented hurdles of the 2025 and 2026 tech landscape? I argue yes. The self-taught route remains the financially superior choice because it forces the student to demonstrate the hustle and specialization demanded by modern employers.
And I come at it from a fundamentally different perspective. While I admire the ambition, and look, the success stories are real, I believe that for the average aspiring developer, this path is severely undercut by market reality. We are in a highly saturated environment right now where hiring managers are picky, junior unemployment is rising, and the self-taught individual faces this crucial deficit in structure and mentorship. It's just an unreliable gamble for most.
Okay, let's actually anchor my position in the numbers, because I think they tell a really important story here. The path endures because the modern tech industry, at its core, values demonstrable ability over academic certificates. We see massive companies, the Googles and the Microsofts, explicitly stating they hire based on skill, not just credentials. So, why would an aspiring professional chain themselves to 4 years of tuition and the resulting crushing educational debt, which easily runs over $100,000, when highly focused self-taught individuals are landing jobs in the $80,000 to $120,000 range?
And look, this isn't just theory either. We see newer examples emerging right now of developers who transition in, 6 to 12 months and achieve $110,000 salaries starting out. That speed and financial leverage is life-changing. It demonstrates that the non-negotiable requirement isn't 4 years of college, it's focused grit and a smart learning plan. And statistically, this is a common route. Recent data shows somewhere between 27 and 30% of coders skip the traditional university route entirely. It's a proven model of high financial ROI.
That is a compelling financial case. I won't argue with that. But I think it overlooks the brutal filtering mechanisms that have emerged in the 2025 landscape. The reality is that the market is picky because it has shrunk. When over, 126,000 tech jobs just vanished in a short span and entry-level opportunities plummeted, the competition for the remaining slots became extreme. Even highly credentialed computer science graduates are facing an unemployment rate around 6%.
Right.
Now imagine a self-taught individual trying to compete in that environment. You mentioned hustle, and hustle is required, sure, but structure is reliability. When you lack the institutional structure, it is far too easy to, skip the hard parts, to avoid deep dives into complex topics like algorithms or systems, and ultimately to quit. The data suggests that self-taught applicants are struggling profoundly to even get initial callbacks compared to degreed individuals, simply because the applicant pool is flooded and recruiters fall back on the easiest filter available.
I agree about the market flood, but I think that just raises the bar for the standard of proof required. It doesn't necessitate a piece of paper. The solution isn't to spend 4 years earning a general degree. It is to create a hyper-polished, specialized portfolio.
And that's the key point, isn't it? The portfolio.
Exactly. So let's move our discussion to what actually gets you past that filter. A strong GitHub repository with 5 to 7 professionally executed projects, absolute mastery of version control like Git, and a ruthless focus on current, in-demand skills. We know where the demand is. Job postings for AI and machine learning specialties are up, 184%? And proficiency in cloud infrastructure like AWS or Azure is essential. Companies actively favor the individual who can prove applied learning or hustle over someone who may have studied dusty theory years ago and can't demonstrate immediate utility.
I'm just not convinced that the GitHub portfolio is the silver bullet you claim it is. particularly when we talk about breaking into the big tech companies where those, $120,000 plus entry salaries are most prevalent. We need to talk about the gatekeepers. When you submit your application, how many self-taught candidates are actually getting past the applicant tracking system, the ATS, when they check the no degree box? Very, very few.
Past the ATS, you face the technical interview. And this is where the lack of structured education becomes a genuine liability. The degree provides necessary theoretical foundations, a deep understanding of big O notation, data structures, algorithms, which are the core of these interview questions, the leak code problems. It is extremely difficult to achieve that level of theoretical mastery alone without the enforced rigor of a computer science curriculum. The degree, for better or worse, guarantees a certain competence in these foundational areas, which the hiring manager just defaults to when the stakes are high and the supply of candidates is abundant.
That's a fair point about the gatekeepers. I'll grant you that. But the self-taught success stories prove they are bypassable. If the degree offers a standardized theoretical foundation, the self-taught path offers superior specialization. I think we should be optimizing the self-taught effort to bypass that generalist pool entirely.
How so?
Well, if an employer is hiring for a generalist junior role, yes, you're right, they will probably default to the CS grad. But if they're hiring for a specialized role, say a DevOps engineer responsible for managing CI/CD pipelines in AWS, that hiring manager cares far less about your undergraduate theory classes and much more about whether you have built and deployed a production-ready application and can manage infrastructure as code. A targeted self-taught person can achieve that project competence in 6 months, demonstrating the specific applied knowledge that 4 years of generalized theory might miss.
I agree that specialization is the ultimate differentiator, but that road is now being actively eroded by automation. And this brings us to a major structural challenge: the impact of AI. AI is making the entry point actively harder because it automates simple, repeatable code, which is precisely the work traditionally assigned to junior developers. We have to acknowledge that young developers aged 22 to 25 have seen their available jobs drop by 20% recently. This strongly suggests that the easiest, lowest level self-taught roles, the stepping stones into the industry, are being squeezed out by tools like GitHub Copilot. This leaves the absolute beginner facing a much steeper climb. The only work left is the complex system architecture and high-level problem solving, which again is where the degreed individual's strong theoretical foundation provides a distinct advantage. If the floor is gone, the ramp up is just that much harder.
That's an interesting analysis. But I see AI as accelerating a necessary market shift, not eliminating the path. The self-taught community is uniquely agile. While institutions are slow to update their curriculum, the self-taught person can pivot instantly to where the demand is shifting.
Okay.
Yes, AI automates basic code, but it also creates entirely new, highly specialized roles that didn't exist 2 years ago: AI trainers, prompt engineers, ethical security analysts. More critically, AI provides tools like advanced language models and code assistants that fundamentally speed up the self-taught learning process. The self-taught individual is already comfortable learning outside of a formal classroom, so they are the first to adopt and master these productivity-enhancing technologies.
So they learn to use the tools that are replacing the jobs they wanted?
They learn to leverage the tools to get better jobs. Instead of sticking to oversaturated basics, like basic front-end development, the self-taught person must focus on specialization. Look at the demand for machine learning operations, MLOps, or advanced DevOps. The market is absolutely starving for experts in these high-level niches. In those fields, a 3-month course project demonstrating the building of a complex neural network or a fully automated deployment pipeline is vastly more valuable than a 4-year general degree. This focus allows the self-taught person to bypass the saturated pool of generalists entirely. Specializing early sounds strategic, but that level of focus and execution requires monumental discipline. And this leads us to the reliability factor. The problem with relying solely on individual grit is the high failure rate. When studying alone, without institutional deadlines or accountability, so many people just fizzle out before they ever finish that high-level specialized project.
Sure, it's not for everyone.
Well,
and learning complex topics like distributed system design, understanding how large companies like Netflix or Amazon build these massive scalable infrastructures that is incredibly difficult to replicate in a vacuum. You need exposure to real-world infrastructure and mentorship feedback. That gap between a hobbyist project and a professional-grade architecture is often too wide for the solitary learner to cross reliably.
Right. And that's why structured, short-term alternatives like coding bootcamps exist. While they cost money, usually, $10,000 to $20,000, they offer quick, job-focused training, a structured curriculum, and, critically, peer support and mentorship. Some bootcamps report job placement rates as high as 85% within 6 months. This represents a far more reliable, structured jump into the market than relying purely on internal motivation to solve 100 LeetCode problems after a full day of work. The cost of a bootcamp is arguably worth the dramatic increase in the probability of landing a job quickly.
I see why you favor structure, but I think the self-taught path proves something more valuable than mere adherence to a curriculum. It proves superior personal resilience and self-direction. The successful self-taught developer has essentially passed a multi-month, high-discipline job interview before they even apply for the job. Companies know that developer requires less hand-holding. And importantly, the self-taught path doesn't have to be a solitary vacuum. The necessary structure can and should be built in strategically. We see clear blueprints for this. Start with incremental job steps. Get your foot in the door with IT support or QA tester roles to gain professional context and networking opportunities. Use freelancing platforms like Upwork to land real-world projects that enforce deadlines and provide client feedback, bridging that hobbyist to hireable gap you mentioned.
That's a lot of extra steps.
It's a strategic climb. And crucially, networking must substitute for the institutional structure. A goal of landing 50 genuine professional contacts through LinkedIn and local meetups provides mentorship, job leads, and crucial accountability, all within that target 6 to 12-month learning window. You exchange the high-cost, standardized structure of college for a flexible, low-cost structure based on relentless personal effort and strategic relationship building.
I acknowledge the power of strategic networking and the value of proven resilience. Those who succeed on the self-taught path are clearly demonstrating exceptional initiative. But we have to be honest about the cost of that initiative. The volatility of the current market means that high failure rates and extended job searches are the rule, not the exception, for uncredentialed applicants.
It's a filter.
It's a wall for many. When faced with a choice between low cost and high discipline versus high cost and high reliability, such as a proven bootcamp model, the current market volatility pushes me toward recommending the higher reliability option, especially for listeners who need to make a career switch stick quickly. The risk profile of going completely self-taught right now, when unemployment for juniors is so rough, is simply too high.
And to summarize my perspective, the fundamental financial leverage of the self-taught path remains, well, unparalleled. We're talking about zero debt and rapid movement toward $150,000 plus mid-level salary in just 2 to 3 years. That is a massive head start on wealth creation. The hurdles we discussed, the picky market, the need for specialization, simply mean the self-taught person must be hyper-focused on high-demand niches like MLOps and cloud infrastructure. When you are specialized, skills and project-based proof will consistently beat paper, even in a down market.
I agree that the self-taught path is absolutely achievable for those high-disciplined outliers who are capable of strategically focusing on those high-value niches. But for the average person, I must reiterate the caution. The current job landscape, the extreme pickiness, the structural disadvantage in application filtering, and the difficulty in securing vital mentorship makes it a high-risk, low-reliability choice. You must weigh your personal tolerance for solitude, rejection, and extended learning time against the potential payoff.
Whether you pursue the debt-free path or opt for a structured educational model, I think we can both agree that one point is non-negotiable: consistent, deliberate practice. That means maintaining a coding practice of at least 30 minutes daily, and smart, proactive networking are essential requirements regardless of the credentials you ultimately possess.
Absolutely. The decision ultimately rests on the individual listener. They have to weigh the significant financial debt and time risk of a 4-year degree against the high volatility and supreme discipline requirements of the self-taught path, all while navigating this current highly competitive market.
Thank you for joining us for The Debate.